Mid-November 2024, the Atlantic Ocean. A massive rocket booster descends through the sky and touches down on a floating platform with pinpoint precision. But here's what makes this moment absolutely shocking. This is Blue Origin's second flight ever, and they just stuck the landing. After 25 years of criticism, delays, and doubts, Jeff Bezos's rocket company just proved everyone wrong in the most spectacular way possible. SpaceX has done this over 100 times. So why is everyone talking about Blue Origin right now? Because what they're planning to do next is something even SpaceX didn't attempt. This early Blue Origin wants to refly this exact same booster on their very next mission in early 2026. That's right, going for reusability on flight number 3 and the timing. It coincides perfectly with SpaceX's Starship Block 3 debut. Coincidence? Probably not. This isn't just about recovering a rocket. Blue Origin is competing head-to-head with SpaceX for NASA's Artemis 3 lunar landing contract. Every successful launch, every recovered booster, every reuse attempt adds credibility to their bid. But here's the problem. Refurbishing this historic first booster could delay everything. New Glenn is designed for 2 to 3 week turnarounds, but nobody expects that speed on the very first reflight, not even close. So Blue Origin faces a critical decision: push for the reuse and risk delays, or play it safe with fresh hardware and keep the schedule on track. Welcome to Space Update 24 Hours, where we break down the biggest developments in space exploration and what they really mean for the future of the industry. Today, we're diving deep into Blue Origin's bold gamble, the pressure they're under, and whether this is genuine progress or just clever PR. Let's dive right in. The reaction was instant. Social media exploded. Industry veterans who'd written off Blue Origin for years suddenly had to eat their words because what we just witnessed wasn't supposed to happen this fast. Let me put this in perspective. When SpaceX first landed a Falcon 9 booster, it took them years of testing, explosions, and near misses. They flew 15 different boosters before they even attempted to reuse one. Blue Origin just landed on their second try, their actual first legitimate attempt, considering the first flight was lost during descent. And here's where it gets interesting. Jeff Bezos isn't celebrating quietly. He's already announced something that sent shockwaves through the industry. They're going to refly this exact same booster on the next New Glenn mission, not in 2 years, not after a dozen more test flights. Early 2026, that's potentially just months away. Now, CEO Dave Limp is being smart about this. He's not making promises the team can't keep. In interviews, he's been refreshingly honest about the challenges ahead. It's kind of a toss-up, he admitted, because the third booster is pretty far along in manufacturing. Translation: Blue Origin has a backup plan. If refurbishing the first booster takes too long or reveals unexpected issues, they'll simply roll out a brand new one. No drama, no missed deadlines. But why take the risk at all? Why not just keep launching fresh hardware and build up a flight record first? The answer comes down to 3 words: NASA Artemis contract. Blue Origin is in a direct competition with SpaceX to land astronauts on the moon for Artemis 3. Every time they demonstrate reusability, every time they prove new Glenn can fly again quickly, they strengthen their position. SpaceX has years of reusability data. Blue Origin needs to catch up fast. And there's another factor. Most people aren't talking about Dave Limp revealed that his phone has been fairly busy since the landing. Customers are coming out of the woodwork, real customers with real payloads. The kind of demand that transforms a rocket from an experimental vehicle into a workhorse. But let's be realistic about what refurbishing this booster actually means. New Glenn is designed for rapid turnaround, 2 to 3 weeks between flights. Sounds incredible, right? Except nobody, and I mean nobody, expects that speed on the very first refurbishment. This isn't routine maintenance. This is learning how the rocket actually behaves after it's been through the violence of launch and landing. Engineers will inspect every weld, every engine, every thermal protection tile. They'll study data from hundreds of sensors. They'll discover things that only a flown booster can teach them, and all of that takes time. So if the next launch slips from January to February, or even March, That's not failure. That's reality. SpaceX took months to refurbish their first recovered Falcon. 9 Blue Origin would be doing remarkably well to turn this around in a similar time frame. The mission itself: Blue Moon, Mark 1, an uncrewed lunar lander test, isn't on a tight deadline. Anyway, Dave Limp has already confirmed it can move to the 4th New Glenn flight if necessary. There's flexibility built into the schedule, precisely because Blue Origin knows this refurbishment will be a learning experience. Here's what most coverage is missing. Blue Origin isn't trying to match SpaceX's current capabilities. They're trying to build the foundation for what comes next right now. The company is focused on manufacturing capacity. Dave Limp stated they're aiming to produce around 20 New Glenn stages. Annually, that's the infrastructure play. You can't have rapid cadence without inventory. You can't have inventory without production capability. SpaceX figured this out years ago. They're now launching every 2.1 days on average, heading toward 170 missions in 2025. That's insane. But it's only possible because they built the factory first, then scaled up the launch rate. Blue Origin is following that same playbook just a decade later. And with one crucial advantage: they're learning from SpaceX's mistakes. They're watching what works, what doesn't, and designing their processes accordingly. There's another pressure point that doesn't get enough attention: military certification. The U.S. Space Force requires New Glenn to complete multiple successful flights before it can be certified for national security space launch missions. We're talking anywhere from 2 to 14 flights, depending on which certification path Blue Origin pursues. Dave Limp hasn't disclosed which route they're taking, but he's made it clear the 2 flights completed so far won't be enough, and this is where reusability becomes critical. If Blue Origin can demonstrate that a single booster can fly multiple times reliably, that accelerates the certification timeline. The Space Force doesn't just want to see successful launches. They want to see a mature, dependable launch system. Every reused booster is evidence of maturity. Every quick turnaround demonstrates operational capability. Blue Origin isn't just chasing SpaceX, they're chasing credibility. Of course, not everyone is impressed when Dave Limp stated that never before has a rocket this big landed successfully on the second try. The internet lost its mind. SpaceX fans immediately fired back. What about Starship? The Super Heavy booster is bigger, and it was caught on the first attempt. And technically, they're not wrong. Starship's booster is larger, and yes, Mechazilla did catch it on the first physical attempt. But here's where the debate gets complicated. Starship didn't land. It was caught by a tower midair. That's a completely different engineering challenge, arguably harder, but also fundamentally different from a traditional landing. More importantly, before that first catch, SpaceX conducted dozens of test flights, explosions, ocean splashdowns, virtual landings where the booster flew the profile but didn't attempt recovery. Blue Origin went straight for a physical landing on their second flight. No practice runs, no building up to it gradually. 2 philosophies. SpaceX says, launch fast, fail fast, learn fast. Blue Origin says, design carefully, test thoroughly, succeed on the first real attempt. Neither approach is wrong. They're just different paths to the same destination. So here we are. Blue Origin has proven they can land New Glenn. Now they need to prove they can refly it. If they pull this off in early 2026, the message to the industry will be unmistakable. Blue Origin is no longer the slow, cautious company everyone used to mock. They're a legitimate competitor in the reusable heavy lift market. And if they don't, if refurbishment takes longer than expected, or if they decide to play it safe with a new booster, that's fine too, because the real victory isn't the next launch. It's the one after that and the one after that. Blue Origin is playing a long game. Jeff Bezos has said repeatedly that he's willing to fund this for decades if necessary. There's no quarterly earnings call forcing short-term thinking. No investors demanding immediate returns. That patience, combined with genuine technical progress, makes Blue Origin more dangerous than people realize. They're not trying to beat SpaceX in 2026. They're trying to build a sustainable space company that's still launching in 2046. So what's the real story here? Blue Origin just did something remarkable Not because they matched SpaceX's capabilities, they didn't, but because they proved something far more important. They can execute. For 25 years, Blue Origin was the punchline, the company that moved slowly, the company that talked big but delivered small. Jeff Bezos's expensive hobby that would never catch up to Elon Musk's empire. That narrative died on a floating platform in the Atlantic Ocean. Now, the question isn't whether Blue Origin can compete. The question is how far they'll push. Will they refly that booster in early 2026 and cement their place in the reusable rocket club? Or will they take the safer path, prioritizing schedule over spectacle? Personally, I think they'll go for it. Because Blue Origin has spent 2 decades being called too cautious. This is their chance to prove they can be bold when it matters. And here's what makes this fascinating. We're watching 2 completely different approaches to spaceflight compete in real time. SpaceX's chaotic innovation versus Blue Origin's methodical precision. Both work, both have their place, and both are pushing humanity further into space. The space industry is no longer a monopoly. It's a race, and races are always more exciting when there's actual competition. Now I want to hear from you. Should Blue Origin refly their historic first booster on the next mission? Or should they play it safe with fresh hardware and keep building flight experience? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. If you found this breakdown valuable, hit that like button. It genuinely helps the channel reach more space enthusiasts like you. Share this video with anyone who's been following the Blue Origin story. They need to see this. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Space Update 24 hours and turn on notifications. We're covering every major development in commercial spaceflight as it happens, from SpaceX's Starship progress to Blue Origin's next moves and everything in between. The space race is heating up, and you don't want to miss what happens next. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.